Hey, it's Greg. I'm back to talk to you about a book that I read in December, and it's been anointed by Oprah. So, what more do you need? Guys, get excited. It's An American Marriage by Tayari Jones. The book has a very pretty cover, by the way, but that's neither here nor there. Anyway, Roy and Celestial have been married a year and a half when Roy is sent to prison after falsely being accused of raping a white woman. And the book is about their relationship after that. Roy struggling to get by every day when he's in prison unjustly, and Celestial trying to deal with the fact that this isn't what she planned, and their marriage wasn't super great in the first place, so she's struggling with the obligation that she has to Roy. And then there's a third party who's kind of an interest, so it becomes a romantic triangle, and that's not really a spoiler. One thing I really like about this book is that Tayari Jones really embraces the complicated nature of this setup and of the characters themselves. Um, I think this would be a great book for a book club because how you react to the book really depends on which character you identify with or which character you think is in the right and which character you think is in the wrong. Tayari Jones doesn't really give you an answer. She lets you make a decision. I would argue that she goes in a little hard on one of the characters, but I can also see that people would have very different opinions of this book and the people in it, and that's interesting. So I would highly recommend this, especially if you're in a book club. Another thing I really like about this book is that it feels timely. You know, with NFL players taking a knee and the Black Lives Matter movement still making headlines, it feels urgent, which makes you feel really into the book. And yet, at the same time, there are parts of it that feel like it could be set in the 60s, and I think that's a really smart move on Tayari Jones's part because it really shows you how little we've actually progressed since the civil rights movement. I will say, though, the timeliness also works against it because having a false rape accusation be the reason Roy goes to prison feels tonally off in the wake of the Me Too movement and the Time's Up movement. Um, and the way in which that accusation comes about just does not really make sense to me. It feels like a forced narrative construction rather than something that happens organically. And I can't help but feel a little bit queasy because the characters talk very negatively about the woman who makes the accusation. And to be clear, she was wrong, but it still feels a little bit off. Having said that, that kind of accusation is very real for African American men, and it's been in literature before. I mean, you look at To Kill a Mockingbird, back when, and even recently with the adaptation of If Beale Street Could Talk by James Baldwin, which was originally published in the 70s. This is a recurring theme in literature for a reason. It really has happened. So it's a give and a take on that one. And while I appreciate the way Jones gives each of the characters a chance to take over the narrative and explain their side of the story to the reader, I do think that she relies on narrative constructs a lot, and that bothers me again. It just doesn't feel like a lot of the decisions are happening in a way that makes sense or feels like something a person would really do, particularly Celestial. In my reading of the book, she's the one who comes off the worst. Maybe you disagree with me. That's fine. I'd love to hear what you think about it. But I just feel like the entire plot hinges on Celestial being passive aggressive and not wanting to make a decision and not wanting to deal with anything and trying to let other people deal with the problems around her for her. And that was infuriating for me. And it felt like if that's what the entire plot hinges on, then something's wrong. And maybe that's just my reading of the book. I can definitely see how somebody else would have a different point of view. And that's one of the things that's interesting about the book, but that's kind of what I was struggling with as I read it. So to sum up, I feel like there are a lot of pros and a lot of cons with this book. There are things I really liked, there are things I really didn't like, things that I enjoyed and things that really frustrated me. But the one thing that's really cool is that I like talking about it. It's interesting to me the way you can read it differently depending on who you are. And I guess that's a really good pro, and that's probably the pro that wins out in the end. So if you've read this and you have a different opinion than me, or you have your own perspective that you want to share, let me know. I'd be interested. If you have a recommendation based on this, let me know, and I'll be back. So thank you.